Right, welcome to UK Casuals. Today we have Mick Robinson, formerly of the band Accent, which I'll be asking about, and also some questions about his team, Chelsea. So how are you today, Mick?
All good, thank you. Nice sunny day.
Yeah, I'd just like to say a little bit about Martin King. I first met you. I first met you through Martin, which was really and Martin was a big help to the channel, and he passed away just before last Christmas, and it was just a real big shock and a real sad loss to everyone. So rest in peace, mate.
Yeah, huge loss. I mean, such a lovely guy and such a character, and he loved helping other people, didn't he? And he was really into doing this channel and chatting about his history.
He really did. And he
wrote some great books and everything, didn't he? And
a great author. I think he was involved in over 100 books. Helped a lot of people write their biographies. And like you say, just a lovely guy. And if he liked you, then he would help you out. That was Martin in a nutshell. Okay, Mick. So we'll talk a little bit about Chelsea first. So can you remember when you first went to see Chelsea play?
Long time ago. All my brothers were Chelsea fans, and they used to go regularly. And it must have been mid-70s, showing me age here. My brother took me to what was the old West Stand. I mean, it's probably 3 or 4 West Stands ago now, but it used to have in fact, we played West Ham, funny enough. I wasn't aware of all the other stuff going on off the pitch those days, but it must have been, because that was at the height of it. But he took me there, and I remember they were at the bar actually the whole game. They just stood at the bar drinking, and I was sat there in the programme reading it, watching the game. So that would have been sort of 73, 70, something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure. It was early 70s anyway.
So then, when did you start sort of going with your mates, when you was old enough to go on your own? That's when football sort of changes, isn't it? When you start going with your pals, you see a different side.
When the last couple of years of my school days, we went, and it was 76, 77. Eddie McCready was the manager, and they were going up. They've gone down to the second, so they had that big slump when they're in the second division, and it all went a bit tits up from those glory days of like Osgood and Hudson and all that. And then they went down, and it all went a bit crap for a while. But then they had all the youth team coming through, like Wilkins and Locke, and all those players, Mickey Joy, and Eddie McCready was the manager. And everyone loved him, and it was a really great season. 76, 77, we went up. And it was in the days when the Shed was singing. We used to go in the Shed with our scarves and all that, and it was all like youngsters, really. And it was a brilliant atmosphere, absolutely amazing atmosphere. And I think that season we got promoted, we beat Hull, and it was like famous. Still on some of the clips on TV where the pitch invasions and that, it was just non-stop pitch invasion. But basically kids, it was like all the kids who'd heard about the team in the 70s were now coming through. And so that was that. And from then I went every home game for several seasons. But then we went up to the first division. And we had a couple of good seasons, but we were very much up and down then, first division, second division, going through into the 80s. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously you were a young lad, you were going to Chelsea. And like you say, you're in the Shed End, singing the atmosphere. Then life moves on for you a little bit, and you got into music, and then you were in the first the actual band you was called was Accent, and you were the actual band that you were actually billed as a casual band, a football casual band. So first of all, how did Accent come about as the band?
Well, me and my mate Brian, who was the singer in the band, we'd been in couple of little local type bands, and we'd just been messing around really. And then we come up with a name, and then we've always, then you sort of felt like you had to have an image to be in a band. I know it sort of sounds a bit ridiculous now, but then it was still those days when you thought you had to have a bit of a look or whatever. And we were going to football, as I just said, on a regular basis. And that whole thing, you could feel it gradually happening around you, you know, with people wearing Farrah's and Lois and, you know, not so much Diodora initially, but like the not baseball boots, sorry, the desert boots and things. Yeah. And the Pringles, the Argyle jumpers and the deerstalker hats. That was like, it was quite weird seeing people in deerstalker hats watching football. You know, it was a bit left field that. I don't know where that come from, but and we sort of thought, well, look, we're wearing these clothes. Why don't we actually really promote it as like a look for the band? And so we were rehearsing around West London, doing little gigs here and there, and then we just thought. Prior to that, there'd been that second wave of mod, which was quite big. You know, like following two-tone, and then he had the mod thing. And the music papers really got into that. And we thought, well, why don't we kind of, because we were young, we just didn't care really, you know, like what people thought as such. We thought, why don't we approach music papers and say, you know, we're a casual band, we like wear the clothes, because no one else had done it. And we thought we would be like a second wave of mod type thing, because there were links between modernism and casuals and clothes in that it was about ordinary kids wanting to look good, you know, like couldn't really afford the clobber as such, but you just wanted to look smart and almost, well, you know, as you know, like you wanted to wear better clothes type thing. So we actually produced a little fanzine, because that sort of came from the punk thing as well, which we obviously caught the tail end of because of our age at the time, where we just wrote our own little newsletter and we called it The Other Side. And we just had a little blurb about the band, and then we got an advert for STUARTS on the back, which was in Shepherd's Bush, Uxbridge Road, who was at the time the local shop that did all the casual clothing, again, as you know. And then we just advertised all our next gigs. And what we did, we sent it to people, we give it out everywhere, and we sent one to Gary Bushell at Sounds. And he just like literally rang us like a week later or something. He just jumped on it straight away.
Was he really surprised by that, Mick?
Well, yes and no. I don't know. We actually thought he'd get it.
Right.
Because of the journalist he was, you know. Yeah. He was at Sounds at the time, and he'd done all the punk thing, he'd done the mod thing. I don't know if he was doing all that Cockney Rejects thing or not at the time. He must have done that, it must have been finished. So a lot of people were a bit anti him as well, but on the other hand, he was a really nice bloke and a great journalist. I think he is a very good journalist. And he sort of took us under his wing, and then straight away he said, well, I'll come to one of your gigs and I'll review it, which he did. And he got us in Sounds, which at the time was a massive music paper. It was like Enemy and Sounds were like equal bidding for the top thing. I mean, they both had their own sort of audience, but Enemy was kind of a bit more intellectual, should we say, whereas Sounds was a bit more down to earth.
For the lads.
Pardon?
For the lads.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And he came to the gig. We played at the Rock Garden, which used to be in Covent Garden, and it was around Christmas time, and he called it Pringle Bells, which was really funny, I think, because he had a good sense of humour as well. And he really loved the band. He was really raving about us. And then he said, look, let's have a meeting or something. I'm going to put you on the front page of Sounds. And we were just like, wow, you know, this is it. You know, this is our break and that, which he did. And they did a photo shoot, and I'll never forget it because we had a great big tennis racket, like an outsized tennis racket. But bearing in mind at that time, Sounds was a rock music paper. You know, they weren't into football. Football was still a bit of a dirty word in the music circle, should we say. like trendy or nothing, you know. And so, yeah, he put us on the front cover, which was quite a brave move, you know. And it said, "This summer will be casual, featuring accent."
Oh,
you put
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. Well, and then so that happened, and I remember running down Fulham Road or something to go and buy the copy of it. You know, I was so excited. But the backlash from that was just like, but which was great publicity. It just created great publicity. You know, there's no such thing as bad publicity, I guess. And the letters they were getting were like horrified. How, you know, how can you have people in tracksuits talking about football and music? You know, they just didn't get it. It really sort of blew down. It's very hard to believe now, but it blew people's minds, you know.
Yeah.
Because it was a bit left field for them.
Yeah. This is a personal question for me, really. The name of the band, Accent, was it always going to be called Accent, or was there any other names in the running?
No, it was just that. I mean, it weren't like some big meaning to it either, you know, about accents and regional accents or working class accents or anything. It was a record shop we saw somewhere. It was called Accent, and we just thought, oh, that'd be a good name for a band. And that was it. But no, not really.
Yeah. No, I just wondered if there was any.
Silly names. I think at one point we were called AD80.
Right.
AD80. That was it.
Sounds like an Adidas trainer.
Yeah.
AD80. So you, after you were, you had your manager in Gary Bushell, but then you had an association with the now famous shop called STUARTS. So how did that come about, Mick?
Well, then it was the only shop in that area selling the clothing that everyone was wearing. And he used to sort of set trend. I don't know whether he set trends or not, because he sort of just he was like an old school market style trader, you know, where if he got a big box of whatever train, I think it was like luck, and it weren't like, none of it was knocked off, but it would probably be dead stock or. Yeah. So he was sort of creating trends, whether that was on purpose or accidentally, or he had his finger on the pulse. I don't know. It was a bit strange, but he was like a massive character around Shepherd's Bush. Everyone knew him. He had like a big gold Rover, Rolls Royce, and he'd drive around, real character, larger than life. You know, a bit like the Arthur Daly school of, you know, or Del Boy sort of trading, shall we say? And we used to go in his shop, and we were just like mesmerised by the way he acted, and he like used to hold court in there, and he would like literally, someone would come in and go, "Oh, these trousers don't fit," and he'd just go upstairs, rummage around a little bit, and come back with the same pair of trousers and go, "Oh, look, these ones will fit you," you know. So we just said, we thought, again with the punk thing, you know, like the Pistols initially had Westwood and McLaren on as management. We thought, well, I think a lot of the Pistols went in because they couldn't afford the clothes, you know. So we couldn't really afford to get the clothes on a regular basis. So we thought, why don't we get him to be the manager, and then we'll get cheap or free clothes. And that's what happened. He just said, yeah. And we had no idea what he was doing or whatever. But it was just more like putting his name to it to get free clothes, really.
And you were getting all the clobber out of STUARTS.
Yeah. And we had photos.
You know, it was a fantastic shop, wasn't it, Mick?
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, it was just like wall-to-wall, great clobber for the time. And quite near QPR'S ground, so, you know.
Lots of away fans used to obviously stop off if they were in London and go and find it. And I suppose it got a little bit of a mythical status and stuff.
Well, every area had its own similar shop, I guess, didn't it?
Yeah. So we'll talk about your famous gig at Chelsea, because I don't think there's been another band that have done it since, where you actually played on the pitch at Stamford Bridge. Very unusual. So firstly, how did that come about? And also, how did you make that happen?
Well, again, Chelsea, the yo-yo years, we were in the second division, but John Neal was the manager, and he brought in all them great players like Nevin and Dixon and Speedy, Canaville, and they done really well that season. It was like possibly one of the greatest seasons, well, for me at Chelsea ever. I know they've won all the stuff since and all that, but I mean, the atmosphere was amazing. Everyone was dressed to the nines, and we had a massive away following. I mean, we'd just go everywhere and sort of swamp towns and grounds and all that stuff. And it was a great, exciting time to be that age, you know. And we knew they got promoted. It was guaranteed they were going to get promoted, and we had one game to go. And they'd sort of announced that they were going to have a promotion party. So we thought, why don't we just ask if we can play? It was as simple as that. We just thought, I think probably been in the pub all afternoon. We've one of them ideas that come after a few pints. And we was drinking around the Kings. We used to drink on the Chelsea 3 o'clock. So it was we weren't playing that day. We were walking past the ground, and we thought, let's just, that's exactly what happened. There was a little office that was I think it had all ivy on it and Chelsea written on the side of it, which was the office. But you could literally just walk in there, and there was a woman on the typewriter tap to be Ken Bates' secretary. And we just said to her, we're a local band, you got your party coming up, can we play, you know, before the game or something, or be involved in some shape or form? And then a voice, you know, sort of someone stuck their head round the further office type thing, and it was Ken Bates. And he said, yeah, no worries, cool. Go ahead, sort it all details out with my secretary, we'll make it happen type thing. And that was the only time we ever spoke to him, as brief as that. And then we sorted out arrangements with the secretary, as he said. And literally on the day of the match, which was May time, I guess, that's the end of season generally, isn't it? About now. Yeah. We rolled up with a PA. I mean, then the ground was in the right state at Chelsea. I don't know if you see.
Yeah, old school.
It's dreadful. Yeah, after terrace, there was more grass on the terraces than, I mean, not being smoked, but actually growing on the terraces than there was on the pitch. The pitch was like, by the end of the season, was like sand, basically. It was like a desert with lumps coming out of it and things. And all the stands were a bit mishmatched. Some of them were close. One of them was close to the pitch. All the others were a bit far away. So we set up in front of what was then the news stand, which was the brand new one close to the pitch. And we played before the game. I can't remember it would have been about an hour before the game. So the ground was just filling up. I mean, normally it would be completely empty at that time, but because it was a promotion game, obviously it was going to be a big crowd and a lot of people getting in there early. Yeah. So the stand we were in was probably at that point, generally, apart from the Gate 13 area, was normal supporters, should we say, i.e. people with scarves, reading the programme, everyday supporters. And we played to them, and we did 3 or 4 songs. We did our single at the time, which was "We Are Lost," which is up on YouTube if you want to have a listen anywhere. And we went down really well. We were quite surprised because we thought, being the nature of football at that time, everyone was either going to boo or shout abuse or tell us to get off or whatever, but actually like a little polite round of applause, and that was it. And then we went back down the pub.
So going into the gig, did you expect boos and get off? And so you were pleasantly surprised at how well it went. At the time of Accent and you were branded as this casual brand, did you know what you had, or were you just young lads having a good time?
Yeah, we were just young lads having a good time. I mean, if we'd have been smarter about it, we could have really sort of engineered a career out of it, I guess, in some ways, or some chart success or whatever. But we were just sort of winging it, really. I mean, musically, we were good, but we weren't quite perhaps good enough to jump to the next level.
Right.
But we sort of sounded like a second-rate version of the Jam, and we were happy with that because we all loved the Jam, basically, at that time.
Yeah. It's a good band.
It sort of ran out of steam, really. I mean, at the time, we did have a little following man that come to our gigs. We could sell out Fulham Greyhound on Fulham Palace Road. That was about the limit. It probably wasn't going to go a great deal further than that. But to achieve, getting on the front page of the music paper in itself was an achievement, and getting that gig.
Yeah.
But if we'd have had a proper manager, say, rather than Stuart just giving us clothes, he could have perhaps worked that into something decent, because we were all right. We were good, and we did have a following, which is after battle, you know, really.
Yeah,
and we had some publicity. Yeah. But we were young and we didn't realise it. So then after a while, we just give up.
Yeah. You featured in the documentary Casuals, which I believe just had its 10-year anniversary, didn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Which was it held down in Brighton? Were you anything to do with that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I now run a pub in Brighton called Shorts, if you're ever in Brighton. That's with 2 T's, by the way. And I'm still very good friends with Cass, and it was the 10-year thing, and he approached me and he showed it at my pub down there. And then he did a talk afterwards. I did a little bit, but he mainly compared it, and people were asking him questions about it all. And I mean, from my point of view, it was nice to hear the background to the film. And it was actually a really great idea, and it was very well done, wasn't it? I think
yeah. I mean, it's the best thing I've seen done about Casuals.
Yeah, because he got all the different areas involved, you know, the regional viewpoint on it, and also the smart thing for me, which I didn't realise now after hearing him talk about it, you know, he didn't want to focus on the sort of football fighting side of it, which normally everyone focuses on. You know, I mean, I know he's done loads of books about all that, but what he said was he wanted it to be purely about the clothes. And I think that's why, and that's why it is a good timepiece. And I enjoyed it 10 years later, probably more than I did when I first watched it, because I think it stood the test of time.
It has. Yeah, no, I'd actually agree with you, Mick. So you're now a radio DJ, and you work for Slack City Radio. So how did that come about, Mick? And is it just a career turn that you took? Because you said you work in a pub, but obviously you still like to do a bit of music and media.
Yeah, well, I manage a pub down in Brighton, but part of that is events and putting on bands, and that's something I've always done. You know, from years and years. I've always wanted to promote local bands wherever I've been, type thing, and particularly now in Brighton, I've been able to do that via different venues I've worked with. And then it just sort of led on to doing radio because of my interest in new bands, really, particularly from Brighton, plus the history of music I've got through going to gigs and over the years, and going to clubs and things, you know, and back in the day and that. And Slack City Radio, I've done a couple of stations down here, but I'm probably happiest now with this station because it's got a lot of freedom to play what you like. I like playing it right across the board, really, but soul, perhaps some old punk, perhaps some new bands. And that itself led on to another radio station, Portobello Radio, which obviously I'm really pleased about because it's based in West London, you know. So now I've got a couple on the go. I do that one a month on a monthly, and the other one every Friday.
We'll put the links to the radio stations in the description. So if anybody wants to tune in, they can do. I'd just like to, just to finish up, your club Chelsea at the moment are, I don't really know how to explain it. They're in a dodgy position. How do you feel about it as a supporter, Mick? Well,
it's difficult. Because we've sort of had success, yet it's all in a bit of disarray at the moment. I think a lot of the players there are jumping ship for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really know. I mean, he's a great manager. I love him as a manager, and he's great. And we've got all some great young players, which I love as well. But you know, we lost a defence in a matter of weeks, and I think they've all kind of lost interest. Not so much Rudiger because he'll always give his all, but people like Christensen and that, you know, they've sort of given up, and that's why we've sort of faltered a little bit at the tail end of the season. You know, we lost 5 on the trot, and the final again with Liverpool, even though we played quite well in that. Yeah, I don't know. It's whatever goes on in the dressing room, isn't it? Player power.
Yeah, it's a lot stronger these days than it ever used to be.
Yeah, I mean the new owner. I don't know. Obviously, I was happy with the previous one, but obviously that couldn't continue because of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want an American company to buy us or whatever. But again, that's just the way football is now. I mean, all that side of it, winning or losing, when you've supported a team like all of us have for like years, you accept winning and losing, and
of course,
and you still support your team, obviously. And when I go down there, like I went to the League Cup final at Wembley, met a load of people beforehand, and we lost that, and it was just a great day out. It's still a great day out, and you still have a great crack if you meet all your old pals down there and that. And I think that's why we all keep going if we can. But I can't go as regular as I used to, but I still love going.
I suppose this sort of last question I'd like to ask all of my interviewees is how you feel about modern football.
Yeah, well, I think probably same. A lot of them love and hate.
Yeah,
I love the fact it's still there. You're still going to have that passion for your team no matter what.
Of course,
you know.
Yeah,
but everyday supporters are being priced out of it. I mean, at Chelsea in the Matthew Harding stand, which is, that's sort of where the more ordinary fans, for want of a better word, stand.
Yeah.
The prices haven't gone up there much. I don't think they've gone up for several seasons. So they are still catering or trying to cater for ordinary supporters, but generally you're being pushed out of the stadium one by one.
Working class.
And I mean, the worst thing for me is the atmosphere is like pretty dreadful now everywhere,
Yeah.
You have little snippets of good atmosphere, but the majority of home teams now, the atmosphere is just flat, isn't it? And you rely on the away supporters bring the atmosphere to grounds now.
They do, yeah. And I think that for me, modern football, VAR is not for me. And also, I heard a thing the other day where there can only be a certain amount of flags because they don't want to cover up the people that are advertising, that are bringing the money in. So again, it's money that's running football. More of a business than a game these days, Mick, I suppose. Yeah,
and I mean, like the cup final one last week, it was at 4:45 or something. I just can't get my head around why. It's all traditionally 3 o'clock. There's one tradition you've got to keep. Cup final at 3 o'clock. Why on earth has it moved to like 4:45? Or it's all these little things, the influence, like you're saying, of the money in Sky and all these that are messing around with it, like needlessly.
It doesn't need. Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I suppose.
It's the whole thing about tradition, isn't it? And there should be certain elements of the tradition that should be kept. And I think cup finals 3 o'clock. I mean, the last game of the season's still 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
On the Sunday. Yeah, but
and
it's all the little tweaks that are killing it in a way, and like you say, VAR. And
it's definitely a different game from what it used to be when you first went back in the 70s.
I gotcha. Because I got to know Pat Nevin a little bit through what I've done, and Colin Pates and all those 80s footballers, and the stories they tell you. Like they used to get the bus down the ground and stuff. There was still the tail end of that and cleaning the other players' boots. But it made them passionate about the team. And I think that's what Chelsea, again, at the end of this season, because that passion isn't there, not from all the players. Obviously, people like James and Mount have got that because they've been there years. Yeah. But the sort of fly-by-night players, they don't give a shit about the team, do they?
They're mercenaries, aren't they?
250k a week, that's not enough. I need 300k a week. I mean, I think that's what Rudiger was on when he wanted 300.
I know, it's madness, isn't it? That 150k is not enough. It does make me laugh, but again, that's the game now. It's a business. Okay, Mick. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Really interesting to hear about accent. And there'll be more videos coming from UK Casual soon.
Awesome. Cheers.